Somebody says, can Ishmael comment on Goni, please? And another one says, oh, Mama Africa, who brought guns to Africa? Very emotional story. Another one says, what are your guests' feelings on leaders like Charles Taylor being prosecuted for their actions? Please ask your guest, is there hope for Africa, and how effective is the African Union in addressing its problems? Just broadly, how would you respond?
Firstly, there is that the first question about guns,
Oh, yeah.
Who is bringing the guns? Well, as we all know, no weapons are made in any of these countries that have this war. So this is other dimension, which I mentioned earlier, which is the proliferation of these small arms into these places. They are brought from all over the world. Usually when you start the conversation, people will say, well, it's China, it's Russia, from weapons from the Cold War. But actually, I was in the fighting, so it's weapons from everywhere. You have Israeli Uzis, you have USA-made M16s, you have German G3s. So everybody is selling weapons. And most of these countries also have natural resources. So then it becomes a way to exchange diamonds with guns in the case of Sierra Leone. So there's another dimension, which is the proliferation of these small arms. And recently, they tried to put an arms trade treaty together that didn't quite work out to control actually the sale of small arms in these places. For example, what happened in Libya when the rebel group was supported to oust Gaddafi? After he went out, Mali started because those weapons were available. So this is the trend that we're trying to also tackle. How the weapons come. Somebody mentioned Kony, the Kony 2012 video. This is another thing. I was one of the people very strongly against it in the US, and I went on media and chastised the video because, first of all, I felt it had it was inaccurate, the information they're providing. The LRA hasn't been in Uganda for how long? Not for how long. And also, it tried to make the problem very simplistic, like, good guy versus bad guy. If it was that simple, it would have been solved already, What's going on in Uganda is not just about Kony. What about Museveni, People don't want to ask these tough questions, Museveni doesn't want what's going on to end because he's benefiting by receiving military aid to continue the pursuit of Kony. It doesn't really want to catch him because he's benefiting from that. And the Kony 2012, I didn't like it because first I felt it was dehumanizing to the African people, particularly to the Ugandans. It was inaccurate. It had this mentality of, the savior. Buy a T-shirt and you can change the course of history in Uganda, What kind of nonsense is that? But I think what these people didn't bank on, which is why their campaign failed, was that these days, Africans, young Africans like myself, have access to Twitter, to Facebook, and all of these things. If you say something inaccurate about us, we would respond.
Sure. It's interesting you say that about Museveni, because one of the quotes that I remember very well just recently, he was saying that Kony is an international problem, so how do you use local resources? In other words, you need international resources to deal with that problem. So in your view, that is one way of raising cash.
Yes. That is one way. I mean, everybody is using the Kony being out there as to further their own agendas. Right now, the Americans are around supposedly helping the Ugandan troops to capture Kony. I don't think that's really what they're doing, So everybody uses Kony, whether it's Sudan, whether it's any other Chad or any other place, his existence out there to further their own agenda. Somebody else mentioned something about, what was the other question about?
Your thoughts on Charles Taylor,
Well, I feel that, first of all, I wanted Chastilo to receive more sentencing than he did. I think that the amount of years he got was very little. But still, with that said, it's a good thing, including Lubanga. But I think these things, when they happen, they begin to set a precedent in the international law on how you cannot use children in war and how if you violate certain people's rights, you'll be held accountable. So it's a good thing. In terms of the EU, I don't know what the EU is up to these days. The AU, I'm not sure what the African Union is up to these days regarding this issue. I wish they could do something more.
All right. Let's take Ibrahim in Johannesburg. Hello, Ibrahim.
Hello, Kulani.
Hi, welcome.
Yes, I have got some questions to raise with Ishmael.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about female children, little children being used as slave, rape, forced into early marriage. Does this program cover this? How can they be rescued? How can they be rehabilitated?
Okay.
Like he was. Is there any program that is being run to do that?
Okay. I thank you, Ibrahim. Thanks indeed for your call. Mohammed in Mpumalanga, I think, is back on the line now. Mohammed, that we spoke to. Okay, there's a slight problem with that line. Let me just read one or two emails for you, Ishmael, before you respond to what Makola Ibrahim was saying. Tapelo says, can you ask your guest how do they bargain with the rebels and government in releasing these child soldiers? That question has actually been also asked in a different email. Somebody who says, I would like to know what goes on in these negotiations, as I assume these warlords aren't willing to give up their soldiers willy-nilly without perhaps some kind of compensation. Would you take us? Okay, before you respond, let's go to Mohammed in Mpumalanga. Mohammed?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Mohammed. Yeah, you were sharing your story as well.
Yeah, what I was saying, I said during the war, I was there from the starting to the finishing. That time I was Form 2. I was attending St. Edward Secondary School in Kingston. But I was staying in Calabar Town. So I was captured 3 times. Each and every captured, I would stay with them like 3-4 months. But I was very much brave among them. And they give me the confidence. So I was lucky to escape for the 3rd time. But coming from Wellington to Freetown to see my family, I was caught at the brewery there. The rebels were hiding under the gutters. So I was caught and I was nearly cut my limbs off. You understand?
Yeah. So wait.
So from that time, I got somebody who knows my father in a good way, because my father was a regent chief at our village at Potloko district.
All right,
So
I think Ishmael wants to
help me. I was just going up and down Guinea, come Liberia, come Ghana. Then later he helped me to come to South Africa. But what's going on there? As a small boy that time, I cannot give account of all what was going on. Even now, I came to Home Affairs to seek asylum. What they were asking me and what I was explaining. In fact, the Home Affairs, they pretend not knowing Sierra Leone, or even not knowing that there was a war going on in Sierra Leone. And this war lasts for more than a decade. Yes. And up to now, people are still struggling. Like for me, my house in the village, then the townhouse, all was burned. So now I'm here. Even my people, not all up till now are able to contact. And not all of them know that I'm still alive up till now.
Yeah.
So I was very much interested when this program come up like this. I stay at Akenuk.
Hey man, anybody bruh?
Yeah. Fine, pa.
Hey, fine, no?
They call you, they cry because I lost me people all. Even my papa right now, na chief.
Yeah.
And an APC member, but OSLPP come, they all are APC all are right now.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they kill him or they not kill him.
Yeah, but what you're trying to explain.
That we place now APC place, SI Koroma, the place where SI Koroma making garden.
Now
APC place. So when after the election, my papa go vote for SLPP. When in at na region.
But Mohammed, I feel say for talk inside English, because then people are not going to understand what they talk so now.
So make a run because me say why be they go school.
Now I'm telling Mohammed he should speak in English. Speaking in Creole. So
Mohammed, just hold the line. Hold the line, Mohammed. We're going to take your contact details. We're going to pass them on to Ishmael. But what do you think then about Ishmael's story? About Mohammed's story?
Mohammed, pretty much this is what I'm trying to do. What Mohammed is saying, that he's frustrated in the sense that this thing happened in Sierra Leone a number of years ago, and when it was happening for 10 years, most people did not know about it, even on this African continent. So it's this frustration. It's very difficult to explain to people what happened in Sierra Leone, because it was so. It almost when we started this program, it almost seems like unreal. You know? So I think one of the reasons why I wrote this book was really to start that conversation, to have people realize that this did happen, and it was one of the most brutal wars, to date. And so what he's explaining is that, as a refugee, you're traveling around and you arrive at certain places and you try to explain the story. Nobody believes you, because it receives so little coverage, particularly even on this continent. So the idea of raising this awareness, and this still continues, is to actually change that. Now, I want to come back to something that Ibrahim, the caller, just mentioned about girls. About girls. I was just in Central African Republic, and I was mentioning is that one of the difficulties that girls are the last to be released. Nobody wants to give up girls. First of all, they serve supportive roles by cooking, carrying loads, and sexual abuse, sexual favors to the commanders. And some of these young girls have children during the time of war, and they have to live with these children after war. So their case is even more difficult. And usually when people think about child soldiers, they think about the boy with the AK-47. They don't think about the girl. There's also a girl with the AK-47, sexually abused, have a child, and all of these things. So when we speak about child soldiers, the term covers not only the child that fights directly in the war, but the child that's abused in the war. There's also the international labor organizations use the worst form of child labor is also part of recruitment. And also you have children who carry arms and ammunition, children who are used as spies, children who are sent ahead as cannon fodders. So it covers all of these things. So child soldier is not just the guy who fights in the combat or the girl. It covers all of these things that Ibrahim is talking about. So when we go to negotiate the release of children, we are looking for all of these children, not just the ones who fight. And it brings me back to the question that other people have asked about how do you do negotiations. First of all, you sign an action plan with an armed group, which means that the armed group allows you to come in and verify, meet the kids, interview them,